Town Council meeting on August 11th, 2026. Will you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, will the town clerk please take roll?
Councilmember Hoback,
Here.
Councilmember O'Connor,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Bell,
Here.
Councilmember Pessamorelli,
Present.
Councilmember Bear,
Present.
Councilmember Mortallero,
Here.
and Mayor Moore.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
All right, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve tonight?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. We have an agenda. First item on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda. There are items A through M, so bear with me as I read through these. Okay, the first is the approval of the June 9th, 2026 Town Council meeting minutes. B is the approval of the July 14th, 2026 Town Council meeting minutes. And C is the approval of the July 28th, 2026 Town Council meeting minutes. Item D is a resolution approving an agreement for professional services with Burns & McDonnell Engineering Company for the Zone 2 Water Systems Improvement Project. Item E is a resolution approving an agreement for professional services with Burns & McDonnell Engineering Incorporated for the Zone 2 Water Storage Tank and Pump Station. Item F is a resolution of the Town Council approving an intergovernmental agreement with Weld County for town participation in community development block grants for urban county program. Item G is a resolution authorizing the assignment of the town's private activity bond allocation for 2026 to the Housing Authority of the City and County of Broomfield, Colorado DBA Broomfield Housing Alliance, approving an assignment of allocation and providing other details in connection therewith. Item H, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Erie approving a maintenance agreement for Colliers Hill Build to Rent LLC for tracks A through T, Colliers Hill, filing number 4H. Item I is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with Boulder County for the November 3rd, 2026 coordinated election. Item J, a resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement with Weld County for the November 3rd, 2026 coordinated election. K is a resolution approving a second amendment to the construction contract with RCD Construction Incorporated for the Vista Ridge Ponds A19 and A20. Item L is an ordinance granting easement to United Power Incorporated for approving the associated easement agreement. And item M, the last one, is a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Icon Engineering Incorporated for pre-design and design services related to County Line Road improvements to Lean Avenue to Erie Parkway. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. I know there won't be any further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. We've approved what's on the consent agenda. We'll move on to public comment tonight, and I'll look to our town clerk to see if anybody has signed up.
I am not, excuse me, I'm not showing anybody.
All right. Then we'll move right on to general business, of which we have 3 items tonight. 2 of them are resolutions with regard to the upcoming election. And so the first one is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Erie submitting to the electorate of the Town of Erie at the November 3rd, 2026 coordinated election certain questions authorizing the issuance of debt and the increase of sales and use tax for the purposes described in the ballot question. With that, I'll turn it over to Luke Bollinger.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Luke Bollinger, Director of Parks and Recreation. Following up on our July 14th meeting where Council directed staff to bring back final language for the November ballot for Parks and Recreation. We have Director Sands, Director Ray, and we have Hilltop Securities and Butler Snow. In case we have any questions, we brought the A-team tonight. If you recall, at that July 14th meeting, we brought forward a proposed 0.501% sales tax increase that would generate an estimated annual revenue of $3.2 million with, that would cover the annual debt payment of $2.5 million, with remaining annual revenue at $644,000. That is for the ECC renovation and expansion project, in addition to operations, maintenance, equipment replacement, reserves, and other parks and recreation needs. After that meeting, we rallied with Hilltop Securities, and they advised to include use tax in our calculations, which essentially raised our, what would you call that, Sarah? Our estimated annual revenue from sales and use tax. So after we reran those numbers, we discovered that a lower sales tax amount could generate that same number. That's why you have 3 resolutions. We didn't want to rewrite ballot language tonight, so we wrote 3 resolutions for that, for those 3 different scenarios. So that 0.356% generates that same amount of number that we originally presented, that 3.2 million, with the 644,000 in estimated annual revenue left over after the debt service payment of 2.5 million. That number, that $2.5 million in annual debt service payment, does not change with any of these scenarios. The 0.4% number generates 3.6 million with 1.04 million left over for those parks and recreation needs that I mentioned. And the recommendation of 0.501% generates a $4.5 million in estimated annual revenue with 1.9 million left over. Staff is recommending the 0.501% increase to include in the ballot language for a couple of reasons. One, that's what we pulled on earlier this year and received very positive feedback from our survey. And then all the community education that we did in the last couple of months also received very good feedback on that number. Another reason that we're recommending that 0.501% is that I know you've all heard me say that today's capital is tomorrow's maintenance, and this option gives Parks and Recreation the ability to keep the ECC and Parks and Recreation facilities refreshed, operating, and sets us up for future capital needs when the time comes. So with that, that's all I have for you this evening. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, I'll bring it back to council to see who would like to start with their questions. Good, Councilmember Mortolero.
All right. Well, thanks for all the work you guys have done on this, and I know it's been a few months. So one of the questions I had is, in the ballot language, can we put an example, like the 0.5%, when you first look at it, is like, okay, is that, $5 for every $100? Is that, oh no, it's only 5 cents for every $100, right? It provides the example so that people don't have to read the ballot and then go and figure out exactly what 0.5% means. Is that?
So I'm going to look to our bond counsel for that, about what is required in the language and not.
Good evening, Council. My name is Laura Wood. I'm with Butler Snow. It's good to see you all again. So the 0.51% is how we structure it under Tabor. That's how we like it in the language of the actual question itself. But that doesn't mean if you wanted to adopt a resolution or something that says, like, this is what this amount is, or information on what that dollar amount looks like, you could do that as long as it's not using your public funds in order to say yes or no to this question. But we'd recommend this language specifically because this is just how, in the Tabor ballot language, how we try to keep the language as tight as possible, which I say that and it's all caps and it's very long. But we need to have that 0.51% to say exactly how much is commencing January 1st. And so putting examples in there will just add to the length of this particular question. But I think that you could do it in other ways, like in a resolution or in your information online or things like that.
Okay, but you're recommending that we don't put it on the ballot itself?
Yeah, in the ballot question itself. Yeah.
Okay.
I might add too that normally something like that is something, if you had a campaign committee that comes out to be in favor of this, the materials they put out is probably the place where you would see something like that. It's probably not something that the town or town staff would deal with, but if there's a committee, under FCPA that comes out and raises money and the Vote Yes campaign or whatever, that's probably where you'd see most of that type of information.
Yeah, and in ballot language, we try not to persuade voters yes or no because it can get into potential legal challenges. So that's why.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that if it's in material that goes along with it, most people get it, some people get it. I don't know what the percentage is, but 100% of the voters would read the example, right? So I'm just looking for, simplicity.
And if I can, we already did produce that material, and we have been sharing that with our public quite widely. What this means for a $5 purchase, a $100 purchase, a $500 purchase, we have already been pushing that out there prior to ballot language being adopted. And to everybody's point here, after ballot language is adopted, we can't do any more persuading and campaigning. But that has been created and has been shared with our public quite widely before today.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add is this is a Tabor question, which means it will be in the blue book or in the
Okay.
books the county put out, and pro and con statements will be submitted for that. So again, if there's a pro side that comes out, that would be a place for the pro side to submit.
Okay, so Blue Book, a lot of folks look at.
Right, and just to be clear,
necessarily everybody.
we don't do the like pro.
That's not a staff thing. That's something
Right.
that would have to be submitted by
Understood.
outside.
Yep. And then the overage, Luke, you mentioned that it would be for maintenance going forward. Whatnot. So is that the primary or the bulk of it would be just to continue to maintain our facilities?
Yes, just for Parks and Recreation operations, maintenance, equipment replacement, reserves, and other Parks and Recreation needs.
Okay. And then we originally, when it was presented way back when, it was at $27 million. And then when the last time you guys presented, it was at $32 million. You added $5 million to add some features to the expansion. And I forgot what those were.
Yeah, so we started out at 27 million, and then we received some direction from council to push a little bit more to the east. So we were able to add some additional fitness facilities. We were able to relocate and keep the racquetball courts, expand some of the staffing areas, which pushed that project, based on our consultant's estimation to 32 million. The 32.5 million is both the expansion and the cost for the bond. I think I said that right. Okay.
And then I guess the next thing, I just wanted to make everybody aware that at the 356, we would be below Lafayette, Boulder, and Louisville. And if we go any higher, if we go to the 0.4%, we would be the highest in the area. And then 0.5, obviously, more even higher increase.
Okay. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. So I don't remember if this came up in the survey or not, but one of the recent concerns I had. So we won't know till the end of the month if the Front Range Passenger Rail District is going to have their tax measure on the ballot. They would be Erie is defined in the area. That potentially could be another 0.3 to 0.5% sales tax.
Correction, that Erie's not included in that.
It specifically says in the ordinance that unincorporated.
That was an earlier version. The version we ended up passing specifically took Erie out.
So we're not in. Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, then cool. Well, that's all I need to know. Thanks.
Okay. Other questions?
I-
Let me make sure Mayor Pro Tem is done.
I'm done. Sorry.
Okay,
Yep. Yeah,
sorry,
that was the
go
only
ahead,
thing. I had.
Councilmember Bear.
So I just had a question. When I ran into you at the farmer's market, we talked about my $7 tomato I just bought and what a sales tax would be. And I was trying to remember, I think it was getting to the point that Councilmember Mortellaro was saying earlier about, like, what does it look like for an average purchase? I remember we talked about coffee versus...
Yes. Let me pull that up here because I do have that information. And you're talking with the 0.501%?
Yeah, did you include other, like the 0.4 or the 0.356 in those outreach?
We
Just the
didn't,
point.
we didn't because at the time we were targeting that 0.501% because at the time we were just anticipating just sales tax. When we included the use tax, that raised that estimated number. So on a $10 taxable purchase, 0.50 is a 5-cent additional tax. On a $50 taxable purchase, it's a 25-cent additional tax. On a $100 taxable purchase, it's 50 cents additional tax. And then in a $1,000 taxable purchase, it's $5 additional tax. So there's some context. And like Gabby said, that's the graphic that we've been sharing at the farmers market, at Arbor Day, in our ECC open houses, and then online as well. We shared those same graphics to give people a little bit of context of what that increase actually means. Obviously, with the 0.356 and the 0.4, those numbers are lower.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's helpful just to know, how is this going to hit the pocketbook on an average day, or if I buy a new car, that kind of thing. So, so that I think the 0.5% makes sense. And then let's see. Oh, so it's my understanding the 0.5% generating the extra funds for operation and maintenance kind of just future proofs our investment now so that we will be able to care for any improvements we make, any of the expansion.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
And can I just add to that too, because we didn't mention this, but part of with the debt that we'd be taking out with this, with the 0.50, it actually increases our debt coverage, which ultimately could save us a little bit of money on the actual debt issuance itself, because we would see a possible better interest rate, a possible better rating. So I just want to add to that too, that there is some savings possibilities whenever you have that better debt service coverage. And if you do have questions about that, we have Hilltop here, but I think that's an important component of this too, because that higher debt service also protects us in the future too for those future investments and ensuring that we make our debt payments.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Petronelli?
Yeah, I had two questions. One was like, was there a logic around why we picked like 0.3, 0.4, and 0.5?
So the 0.356 goes back to those original numbers that we presented in July when we were just including sales tax. When we included use tax in that calculation, it dropped that percentage number down that would generate the same amount of revenue. We just wanted to give council a mid option. 0.356 is frankly an awkward number. So we wanted to give a nice even number for kind of a middle choice if council chose that. And then obviously the 0.5% was something that we originally anticipated way back when we started polling the community to generate the necessary revenue for the debt service payment.
So I understand sales tax, but can you explain what a use tax is?
We'll let Sarah answer that question.
So use taxes are for some of our other commodities, like if you purchase something for a large building, and then also permitting fees. Some of those fees are rather taxes fall under use tax. So it's a broad stroke. There's a lot of things that fall in it, but it's not just your basic day-to-day purchases. It's more aligned with development type purchases.
Also not for the ACC membership fees or using
No.
ACC?
Those are fees. So those are adopted separately.
The third question was like, is there a sunset for this one or it's in perpetuity?
So the way the ballot language is currently written in the resolution, it does not have a sunset option.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead. Councilmember O'Connor?
Thank you. So for the, so say council goes with the 0.5 or 0.501%, that is 1.3 million over that O&M that we were originally anticipating. What would the residents see with that 1.3 million that they're paying annually in that sales?
Well, I think they would see obviously less reliance on the general fund from Parks and Recreation. When our assets do start to age out, we can use those funds to replace them. So think about your playgrounds. We could finish phases of parks that we don't have the existing funding for. If somebody's been in the ECC recently, we know there's RTUs, our rooftop units have been failing. We'll be able to replace those assets quicker without relying on the general fund. So we wrote the language in such that it's all parks and recreation needs. So everything from playgrounds to turf conversions to building replacements, equipment replacement, making sure all of our equipment inside the ECC remains in tip-top shape and not out of service. So those are just a few examples.
Okay. And those additional funds would stay out of the general fund and go into which fund?
So they would be in the general fund, but they would be restricted to only the uses that are authorized in the language of the ballot. So in our accounting, we would essentially pull out whatever was generated by that 0.501 or whichever percentage, and then we will track all of those costs and correlate them with only what is approved in the ballot language. So they will not commingle with IT or finance or any other, but they will still be in the general fund. They will just be restricted to only those uses.
And if they're not used, they'll just continually roll?
Yes, they'll fall back to fund balance, but what we'll do is we'll have a separate restriction for that when they fall to fund balance. And then as we need to reappropriate them for whatever purposes in Parks and Recreation, we'll do that at that time. So they'll just stay restricted kind of wherever they land.
Okay.
And just for clarification, the 0.5% would generate 1.95 million over the debt.
But it's 1.3 over that anticipated $600,000 original O&M amount.
But yes, would be completely restricted.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Hoback, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay, I give as somebody who's really fiscally disciplined, when I see the different percentages, it at least raises a red flag in the sense that the discussion in the summer was we need X amount, and to get to X amount, we need 0.5. Now with the use tax added, we can actually not go out for as much and still achieve the goal that was set out at the study session, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so that leads me to want to support the lower tax. It's not a hill I'm going to die on. I want this to be done. I think the rec center is part of our small town feeling, a place to go, a community. It's totally overutilized, overused at this point. So we need the space. We need the remodeling. It's 20 years old, so I'm totally for all this. But I also don't want to just tax our community because we can. And so how much money today is subsidized out of the general fund to the rec center?
Approximately $4 million.
$4 million. And the difference between the 0.35 and the 5 is how much?
1.3 million.
Okay, so we still would be subsidizing out of the general fund. Okay. I'm feeling better about the 0.5 as I look at it through that lens. Thanks for listening to the constituents who are upset about the racquetball courts. So I appreciate that.
Yes,
too.
absolutely.
All right. I'll see if there's a motion to approve one of the three different options that we have in front of us.
I'd like to move to approve the 0.4%.
All right. We have a motion to approve the 0.4. Is there a second? All right. The motion dies for lack of a second. We'll make another run at this. Would somebody like to make a motion for one of the remaining two options that we have?
I move to approve Resolution 2026-163 for the 0.5%
I'll second that.
version.
I think Mayor Pro Tem seconded. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right. Motion carries at the 0.5%. Awesome. Fingers crossed we get voter approval that the rec center can be expanded and remodeled.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll move on to our next item tonight, which is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Erie submitting to the electorate of the Town of Erie at the November 3rd, 2026 coordinated election a certain question authorizing a new lodging tax for for the purposes described in the ballot question. I'll turn it over to Gabby Ray.
Yes, hi, Gabby Ray, Director of Communications and Community Engagement. You saw me also last on July 14th when we discussed this possible lodging tax, and we went over the draft ballot language at the time, and the direction given from council was to work on increasing how much we believed the tax may bring in revenue to the town. One of the concerns would be if we don't get that number correct and we take in more money than we said we anticipate in the first year, we may have to do refunds of some sort to our people who paid this. So that could be a problem and very difficult to manage. It can be done. There are ways to do it, but it's not something we really want to do. So staff went back and did some more research and looked into how many short-term rentals we think we have now and we think we may have into the new year as Sundance comes and other things may be happening in the region. And took into account that we're seeing nearly double the cost for overnight stays during that Sundance period at other short-term rentals in other communities at this point. And so we landed on $150,000 as what we assume and think may come in. And we think it's a safe amount based on how much sales tax we currently get from short-term rentals that are in the town and with some increases that we anticipate seeing over the next year. So that was the only change from the last draft version to this draft version that you'll see. Oh, and in addition to, we had asked to write the numerals for 3.5% instead of having it written out in words. So it was a little easier for the voters to read and see in the ballot language pretty quickly. So those are the changes that we made since July 14th. Happy to answer questions. And just a reminder too, that this is purely talking about the tax option for lodging. And on September 1st, you'll be getting the first presentation from the planning team about short-term rental regulations. So the regulations of short-term rentals is a separate topic from this, though we're trying to do them in tandem so we can have licensing in place in order to make the collection of the tax easier, assuming that the tax passes. Okay.
All right. Great. I'll bring it back to council for any questions. This one's more straightforward, I think. I think most of us, if not all of us, go and we stay in other cities and we're paying the tax. All of these have some impact on our community, be it police services that may be needed or just coming and going, right? That's wear and tear on our streets. So I'm certainly supportive of this. If there's no question, I'll see if there is a motion to approve resolution. Oh, I lost it. Resolution 2026-164.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
I just want to stress upon this point again that I would want to see that if this does pass, that the code is changed so that it doesn't impact those long-term rentals that have holdover provisions or month to month, basically, so that there's some sort of distinction. And possibly if someone is displaced because their home is unavailable or uninhabitable, that they can apply for getting a refund on that tax because it would be their primary home while their home is being repaired. So.
Yeah, and in our internal working group that's working on the first draft of regulations, we've been discussing some of those issues that you've brought up and working with our attorneys and figuring out kind of where is the best place to put that sort of language. And so we're going to present to you kind of the first iteration of that September 1st of where it makes the most sense to have that language and still be flexible enough in the regulation. So we have that on our list. We'll make sure to bring it forward.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank
All
you.
right, we will move on to our last item that is not executive session, and that is an update on our impact fee process update. So I'll turn it back over to Sarah Sands.
Good evening, Council. Sarah Sands, your Finance Director. I am going to be joined here momentarily with our consultant from Tischler Bice, Carson Bice, who is going to talk through where we're currently at in our impact fee study, give you guys just some information so you can generally understand what they mean, how they work, and then answer any questions about where we're at in the process. So I'm going to hand it right over to Carson.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm assuming you're driving the,
It's up there, and what I'll do is.
oh, here, is this
No,
it?
I was about to say, you should be able to drive. Give her a test there.
Okay. Well, good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm Carson Weiss with Tischler Weiss. This is my fourth impact fee study with the town and my first in your new council chambers. So this is very different for me. So a little bit about us. We're based in Bethesda, Maryland, and Boise, Idaho. We're the national leader in conducting impact fee studies. As you can see here, we've done considerable amount of work in the state of Colorado. Oops, sorry. So, regardless of state, you may be surprised to find out we really don't have a lot of options in terms of funding infrastructure at the local government level. We've got our general sources of revenue, depending on the revenue structure, that could be property taxes, sales taxes, income taxes, franchise fees, et cetera. We've got impact fees, we've got stormwater and transportation utility options, special purpose sales taxes, often have to go to the voters for approval, as we've seen tonight. There are all sorts of special taxing authorities or special assessment districts. Here we refer to those as community facilities districts. We have excise taxes in some communities. We have jurisdictional revenue sharing models. There's one of the most famous ones is next door in Thornton and Westminster. And then we also have a proliferation of public-private partnerships throughout the country. And so because of this limited toolbox, impact fees have gained in popularity, it seems like in every decade since the 80s in terms of a way to fund infrastructure and as a way to maintain current levels of service in our community. In terms of impact fee basics, one is it's a one-time fee designed to cover new developments' impact on different infrastructure categories. It's not a tax. And the reason I say that is I can't tell you how many jurisdictions I've stood in front of and somebody has just said, this is a tax on new development. Well, I think it's important that we differentiate between a tax and a fee. A tax is generally revenue raising in nature. A lot of times you have to go to the voters to get authorization for a tax. There's no correlation between the amount a taxpayer pays versus the services they consume or the infrastructure they consume. A fee is very different. A fee is designed to cover the cost of something. So for instance, when the town designs its fee schedule for site plan review or subdivision review, it's designed to cover the direct and indirect costs. With impact fees, we take it a step further. We have to meet 3 prongs of a legal test. We have to show the nexus or need. So through the study, we're going to document that the town of Erie has grown. That growth is going to continue. So we have to make development projections of residential, non-residential development. We have to show proportionality, and so that's why you just don't have a residential fee versus a non-residential fee. We break it down by either type of unit or by size of housing unit. We break it down by, at a minimum, office versus industrial versus retail, because all of these land uses generate different indicators of demand. So if we're talking about transportation, retail generates higher number of vehicle trips than office. Office generates higher vehicle trips than industrial. And so the fee has to be commensurate with this demand. And so that's what we mean when we say proportionality. Finally, we have to meet what's known as the benefit test. We meet the benefit test in 2 ways. One is through the timing of the expenditure. And a lot of the state impact fee enabling statutes say you have 5 years to spend the money or 7 years to spend the money or 10 years to spend the money. And so that's the first part of benefit. The second part of benefit is geographic. In a town the size of Erie, we typically don't have to get into benefit areas. When we talk about large cities, like we're doing fees right now in Oklahoma City has an urban core, a suburban area, and a rural area, right? It's the size of a county. So we have to get into benefit districts. We also have to get into benefit districts when we talk about counties. But by and large, the town of Erie is providing infrastructure on a town-wide level of service area. And so generally speaking, most of the Colorado jurisdictions we do work in, it's a town-wide benefit district or service area. I did mention impact fee statutes. Colorado is one of 29 states that has an enabling statute. It's governed by Senate Bill 15. It was adopted in October of 2021. unlike a lot of statutes, it really gives you a lot of leeway in terms of what infrastructure categories you can collect impact fees for. For instance, Arizona has very strict definitions of what constitutes public or parks and recreation facilities, what constitutes library facilities. They outlawed general government facilities in 2012. South Carolina, for example, doesn't allow municipal facilities as part of their Impact Fee Act. But in Colorado, it basically says any improvement or facility that is directly related to any service that a local government is authorized to provide. The only caveat is it has to have a useful life of 5 years or more. Some statutes say 10 years, like South Carolina. Improvement has to have 10 years useful life or more. Regardless of the statute, we have specific accounting requirements. We just can't collect impact fees, put them in the general fund. We have to account for them separately. So Parks and Rec has its own account, transportation has its own account, et cetera. You publish an annual report at the end of the year that says we took in X amount of dollars, we spent this much, this is our balance going forward, this is the interest we earned, and that satisfies the requirement. Another interesting part of the Colorado statute is it does have a provision that allows a local government to waive an impact fee on the development of low to moderate income housing. However, it does not comment on whether or not you have to make up the difference. So in standard impact fee terms, what we recommend is if you waive, let's say, $500,000 on an annual basis for affordable housing projects, you need to find $500,000 from some other revenue source in order to make your CIP whole. We just can't waive the fees and pass that on to or reduce the CIP because we don't have the revenue there, if that makes sense. So when we talk about, or when we come before you in a few months with the draft impact fees, there are basically 3 different ways that we can go about calculating impact fees. And the way to think about that is we can look to the past, we can look to the present, or we can look to the future. So when we look to the past, that's when we have oversized facilities where it's been through foresight or by accident, it doesn't matter, we have excess capacity. So we see that a lot with utilities. So for instance, if a jurisdiction has a wastewater treatment plant that has a capacity of 10 million gallons a day, and we're currently operating at 6 million gallons a day, the fee is designed to basically pay yourself back for that excess 4 million gallons a day. We can also use that methodology, though, for non-utility infrastructure categories. So for instance, we commonly see this where, for instance, a jurisdiction has just built a brand new police headquarters 2 years ago, and it's been oversized to serve development for the next 10 or 15 years. We can design the fee where new growth buys into that excess capacity, or if you've built an aquatic center or a recreation center. So that's what we mean by a buy-in or a cost recovery. When we look to the present, that is by far the most common way to calculate impact fees. We call that an incremental expansion approach or consumption-based approach. The way to think of it is it's sort of formulaic, like insurance replacement cost methodologies, where we look at, for example, how many acres of parkland do you have per 1,000? What does it cost us to buy an acre of parkland? What is our existing asset inventory in terms of pickleball courts, tennis courts, ball fields, et cetera? What does it cost to replace that in today's dollars? What does it cost us to build recreation center space, et cetera? And we're going to incrementally expand that infrastructure system going forward. Again, by far the most popular method. When we look to the future, we call that a plan-based approach. And here's the danger with a plan-based approach, is one, we can't correct existing deficiencies with impact fees. And what I mean by that is, I use that level of service example for parks. Let's say your current level of service is 4 acres per 1,000. But our park master plan says our goal level of service or our adopted level of service is 5 acres per 1,000. But we're not there yet, right? So we can't just charge impact fees on a 5 acre per 1,000 level of service unless we have a funding plan in place. So we have to identify a revenue, and that's one of the things you guys were discussing tonight with the sales tax. It's an opportunity, if you so desired, if it weren't just going to the recreation center, you could leverage that revenue source to elevate the level of service, right? But the danger with that is it's sort of like a house of cards, is if we are counting on X amount of dollars in impact fee revenue and X amount of dollars in sales tax or property tax or what have you, and let's say there's a recession and the impact fee revenue isn't what we're expecting, you still have to make up the difference with the non-impact fee source of revenue. So there's a lot more exposure or risk to the general fund. And so that's why that present calculation, that consumption-based approach, is by far the most popular method for calculating impact fees. But as part of this process, we talk to the staff about what plans are, and we've already had in-depth conversations about Parks and Recreation and the sales tax already. And if there are forks in the road, we're going to come back to you as a body midway through the process and say, hey, there's two different directions we can take with this impact fee. We want your feedback. So this is a collaborative process, not only with staff, but with the town council as well. So also with impact fees, we have to guard against development paying twice. That's why we have a concept known as credits within impact fees. And the top one is basically addressed, a site-specific credit is addressed by your implementing ordinance. And this is to guard against situations where if I'm a developer and I walk through the door and I donate a 10-acre tract for a new police station, and we've got land as part of the police impact fee, there needs to be a development agreement hammered out where I'm made whole because we have given you this land, and the development is going to pay the impact fee that has this land component. The second two types of credits, for lack of a better term, are baked into the calculation. So these credits are for when a jurisdiction has existing debt service or is going to be issuing future debt. We have to guard against new development paying sales tax or property tax, but also paying the impact fee for the same thing that I've paid the property or sales tax to. Also, when you've got dedicated revenues, again, tonight's an example where if you're going to the voters for a sales tax for Parks and Recreation or going to the voters for a sales tax for road capacity, and we're going to be commingling those funds, we're probably going to have to give a credit, right? As long as we're not mixing and matching. So, for instance, one of the things we've talked about from a policy perspective on the Parks and Recreation impact fee is that if you're going to fund 100% of the recreation center for sales tax, it probably shouldn't be part of the impact fee, because otherwise we're going to have to give a credit, and it's basically going to discount away the fee. So you're better off using the impact fees to fund the non-recreation center infrastructure. So let's talk a little bit about myths and misconceptions as it relates to impact fees, because I know there's a lot of new faces on council since the last time I appeared in front of you. And one is that there's this misconception that once you adopt impact fees, that it's going to be that silver bullet that's going to cover all of your infrastructure costs, and there's never going to be a need to raise taxes or other revenues. And that's simply not true, because a lot of the capital projects that jurisdictions do elevate levels of service. So, for instance, if you've got a 10,000 square foot police station that serves 50,000 people now, and you're going to build a 40,000 square foot police station, and your only increase in growth is another 10,000 people, we can't just charge all of that new police station to those 10,000 residents. We have to basically make sure that everybody's treated the same. And so that's, again, gets back to that correcting existing deficiencies. Also, there's the operating cost component, right? In most jurisdictions we work with around the country, the capital budget's usually 15 to 25% of the total budget. So it's really the operating costs that kill you, so to speak, right? And so you have to keep that in mind as we formulate the plans going forward. We have to think about operating. And one of the things, and I keep using parks as an example, but as we came out of the Great Recession in 2012, a lot of our jurisdictions sort of cut back on their impact fees as it related to land purchases because of the operating costs. They said, you know what, we've got a lot of vacant land that we need to develop, and so the focus for the next impact fee cycle was, let's just develop the land we have and let's not take on additional land that we have to maintain. So we always keep that operating cost perspective in our discussions with staff. As I mentioned on several occasions so far, impact fees can't be based on these planning standards or desired levels of service because we can't correct existing deficiencies. Also, I think there's a misconception out there that all developers and builders hate impact fees, and I think that's a misnomer. In fact, I always say the smart developers like impact fees. They understand impact fees because it means that it guarantees that they have a place to do business. I've never seen in my 30-year career impact fees ever drive development away. but I can tell you what will drive development away. And that is if there's a misconception or a perception that you don't have adequate levels of service, you don't have a good quality of life, and you're not a good place to do business, right? That's what drives development away. Another misconception is, and we're not working anywhere in the country where affordable housing isn't a huge issue in all the jurisdictions. And so all the costs related to development, whether it's impact fees, permit fees, et cetera, all contribute to that cost. But impact fees don't necessarily have to negatively impact the cost of housing. One of the ways you can mitigate this is through a progressive impact fee structure, which is by size of house, which smaller homes pay less because they typically have fewer people, fewer vehicles, fewer vehicle trips, and we can document that through our analysis. And so that progressive residential impact fee structure helps to mitigate that negative effect that it has. Also, you can adopt policies, as long as it's supported by your planning documents, that you waive impact fees or reduce impact fees in order to encourage affordable housing, but we do have to identify another funding source in order to make our impact fee program whole. In terms of the fee categories that we're addressing as part of this study, it includes police, municipal facilities, stormwater, which hasn't been revisited since our 2016 study, parks and recreation, and your transportation impact fee that we calculated in 2020 is going to move more into a multimodal transportation fee, which is what we're moving a lot of jurisdictions, not only in Colorado but other states, too, because you're now more about moving people instead of just about moving vehicles, and we want that impact fee to reflect that in this update. And then you've got the tree impact fee, and we're having conversations with staff now about some options related to that. We may come back to you and recommend that you not call it an impact fee, that you may call it something else and use another part of the Colorado statute to collect that fee. But that's part of our research as part of this study that we're engaged with right now. In terms of the process, it's early days. We're in the first 2 tasks here right now. We have had the project initiation phase meetings with staff, and we're busy working on the land use assumptions and development projections, which is where we document where the town is now in terms of housing units, population, employment, non-residential activity. Then we have to make those projections going forward. We've had the interviews with departments to determine infrastructure needs and start to work on levels of service. From there, we go to determine the appropriate demand indicators by type of land use. So, for instance, one of the discussions we're having internally with our staff, and we'll be talking with town staff soon, is your current fee is based for transportation is based on vehicle trips. As we move to this multimodal transportation fee, we're likely to move to what's a concept called person trips, which takes into all modes of transportation, not only your vehicular transportation. We have to determine the need for necessary offsets or credits. We'll probably have a work session with the council at this point where we talk about the forks in the road, so to speak, with different fees and where we want to go, and get some feedback on stakeholder outreach and that sort of thing. Go forward with the report and then do the public adoption process. Next steps, as I mentioned, we are developing the land use assumptions as we speak. There will be a second round of meetings with town staff and a first round of stakeholder meetings, which is likely to include the town council as well. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, wonderful. I've got a couple, but I'll
Sure.
turn it over to council and see where it goes. Councilmember Bear.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. This was really helpful to understand. I just wanted some clarification around whether or not impact fees can or cannot be used for operations and maintenance. Does that fall into the
They cannot.
existing
It's
deficiencies?
infrastructure capacity. So, and we can't use it for replacement either, with a few caveats. So, for instance, if let's say you've got a dilapidated tennis court and you decide to replace that tennis court with 2 courts, 50% of that would be impact fee eligible.
I see. Okay. And then as we move through the process, I would love to learn more about the multimodal transportation, like what that could look like, and also what the affordable housing support could look like, moving forward, how we could support. We talk a lot about Prop 123 up here, but I went to a regional housing work webinar today that was countrywide, was National League of Cities, and
Right.
just talking about all the different ways that we can support affordable housing development. And so it made me realize how myopic kind of my view on that has been, and I'm excited to expand my understanding about that. So
Well, one of the things we are going to do as part of this is look at the burden on single-family and multifamily units with the new fee structure compared to the old fee structure. And I'm assuming there's going to be an increase because it's very rare that we ever do a fee study where there's a decrease, right? Because inflationary costs, et cetera, right? But it also is twofold. One is to understand the impact, but also it's to also a lot of times there's a lot of inflammatory comments made about, for every $1,000 increase, you've priced so many people out of the market. Mm-hmm. And it's important that we put that into perspective, right? In terms of what that really means on a mortgage. And we also do a lot of affordable housing mitigation fees in Colorado and elsewhere, and the fee in lieu kind of stuff. But like I said, we're not working anywhere where affordable housing isn't an issue, and we know that's going to be an issue here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I guess my question, we're talking about level of service and whatnot, and I remember years ago our previous public works director, and I think it's been carried on, we kind of talk about, especially with asphalt and things like that, we try to maintain certain levels and to make sure it doesn't get too low to where we're having to tear stuff up and it becomes exorbitant. So looking at, again, on a macro scale, is this something we talk about where ensuring that replacement costs, upkeep, those things are in line with what we're collecting, along with those, are there ways to calculate that out to ensure that we, at least, I understand your point that, yeah, we can't recover everything, but at least we're not having to go to other sources to make up for.
I'm not sure I understand your comment, because what it sounded like to me you said was more about road resurfacing and rebuilding.
Well, if there's impact fee, there's we have impact fees for roads and.
But that's for new capacity, not resurfacing and reconstruction.
Okay, so then that brings me to the second part of my question, because part of what we've done over the last 20 years is metro districts have kind of become a thing. A lot of that has gone on to the metro districts. So the newest parts of Erie Parkway were primarily funded by the metro districts, so there wasn't impact use. So like calculating that out, like how can we, because those are obviously, everybody in town's using the roads. So to be fair to, we want growth to pay its own way, but at the same time, ensuring if a difference between an internal road in a land development versus Erie Parkway that everybody's going to utilize.
So with metro districts, so metro districts are probably building the internal roads, as you said, which the developer would normally take on himself and then deed them over or dedicate them to the town. But if the metro district is funding any part of the type of roads that are being included in the impact fee calculation, they would have to get a credit.
That's credit
as we
back.
Talked about with the development agreement, right?
So this is part of my thing. Is there a way to have that conversation to where we can say, hey, you guys don't have to bond out so much, and then so there's a give and take to work with that? Because I think for the developers, that's probably one of the things that they come back to us with is we're building all these roads for the town.
Exactly.
So, yep. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Councilmember O'Connor?
Thank you. So what are the initial thoughts with the tree impact fund? Doing away with it or collecting it a different way?
Well, so it's complicated. So it's really not, I mean, so there are several issues. One is where the trees are physically located, right? So if I would say that if I'm paying a tree impact fee, but you're putting the tree in your neighborhood, which is 5 miles away from my neighborhood, we've got issues, right? I'm not saying you have to do away with it. I think you just don't call it an impact fee. It's a tree fee. Just like, for instance, we've done a road maintenance fee in Boulder. We've done a bag fee in Boulder. We did a vehicle climate change fee in Boulder. We just were awarded the road maintenance fee for Erie. There's a different statute for those types of things. It is not traditional infrastructure. And so a lot of people call things impact fees, and I think it's just a nomenclature kind of thing. I think you can still do it, but there's also the cost of well, as I remember the conversation, there's a way the program is subsidized as well, so that needs to be taken into account. It's complicated, but I don't think it lends itself to an impact fee. It lends itself to another type of fee.
But still collected the same way, or how?
Yeah, you still collect it.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wouldn't call it an impact fee.
And I don't have to put it in a separate fund.
Right.
You don't?
Not if we remove the impact component of it and it is simply a fee that we apply using whatever methodology we find. I don't have to put it into a separate accounting fund like I do the other impact funds because it's not subject to the same rules. I'm interpreting that correct, right, Carson?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it would be earmarked kind of like the
Exactly. Yes.
the sales tax for the.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. We could do that. We can earmark it or we can have general purposes. It'll just depend on how we structure it.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Councilmember Millie?
Just for the understanding, who pays these impact fees, like developers or when
So
you say
whoever pulls the building permit, and I am the worst at this in terms of, I just always say developer, right? There's a difference between a developer and a builder. Sometimes the developer is the developer and the builder, right? So a lot of times a developer just develops the site and then sells the lots off, right? So it's really whoever comes to pull the permit pays the impact fee. So it's not existing residents, it's the new resident.
Councilmember Mortallero?
All right, great. Yeah, I think we've got some challenges, right? We want growth to pay its own way, and I think that's very important. We don't want to burden the current residents. But Erie is one of the highest impact fees in the area, right? And so we're always hearing about that. And when I look at the permit fees, we're actually lower than most in the area. But then we're a little bit higher on all the other fees. But when it comes to systems and water, that's where a larger gap occurs. So you say developers don't hate impact fees, but how do you balance that, with these, with our current challenges?
Right. A good question. But I would add that several jurisdictions we're doing impact fee updates right now, so they're going to be much higher than they are now. So you may be in the middle of the pack right now. So
Okay.
Anyway, as I said earlier, I mean, unless you are an outlier, and by outlier I mean it's $50,000 everywhere else, and you're at $200,000. Impact fees do not drive away growth, right? It's the cost of doing business. And if you were in the private sector and you were losing $2 on every widget, you wouldn't stay in the widget business very long, right? And so why should the town take a haircut, so to speak, on the cost of development? And so, I mean, there's a reason why businesses and residents want to locate in different communities. It's, the locational advantages, from, if we're talking about economic development, some jurisdiction may have transportation advantages or, workforce education, et cetera, et cetera. From a residential perspective, it's the quality of the schools, it's the quality of life, et cetera. And there's a reason why development wants to locate. And because the fees go up, I mean, why would, for instance, You guys are on your 4th update with us. I mean, we've done work for, Queen Creek, Arizona 8 times over the last 30 years, and the fees keep going up. You wouldn't keep going to the well if it was driving away to new development, right? But I get it. I mean, it is a balancing act, and all of these things have to be taken into consideration, and that's one of the reasons why the stakeholder outreach is so important, right? We don't do this in a vacuum. We want to hear from the home builders, and we want to get their perspective, and a lot of times, and Castle Rock, Colorado is a great example of this. This was about 12 years ago where, they were invaluable in the process where, they were balking at the pool costs in the park and recreation fee. And they were like, if that's what it costs to build a pool, we'll build every pool for you, right? And they came to us with, this is what it costs us to build a pool. And it was much less than what we were using in the impact fee study. And so it's like I said, it's a give and take, and it's an invaluable part of the process.
Yeah, that helps because, I think Erie has a lot of amenities, a lot of reasons why people want to live here and work and, live here and be part of this community. And, how much of a factor does that buy you when, impact fees help to keep it that way, right? So trying to figure out where that line is or, how much room you've got to play with or whatnot. So thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Hoback.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. What might this look like with respect to the airport?
And in what way?
You talk about facilities, police, and municipal.
I mean, having the airport as an impact fee?
Impact fees associated with the airport or using impact fees to build at the airport?
Yeah, I don't think if we're talking about having an impact fee to add on to the airport, I don't think there's a real tight nexus there between new development and the need to expand the airport. There's a term in Arizona, they call it necessary public services. The airport isn't necessary to Erie as parks, water and sewer, roads, et cetera is. There's not a real tight nexus there, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess it's back to me. Okay, so I was one of the proponents to get this study done. Proponent because I don't want those of us that are already here to pay for growth in general. So your slides were helpful to understand the myths and what could be spent and all of that. We just figured out how to pay for the expansion of the police center. And with that, it's being paid for by COPs, but it's being overbuilt in the sense that it's being built for roughly 65,000 people. If I remember, we're about 42, 43-ish thousand now. Can we collect impact fees for the police station to help us offset that?
Yes, and we're designing a fee now to do a cost recovery, but it's not going to cover even 50% of that. Because, example I gave you, I can't remember what the existing station was. I think it was like 18,000 square feet or something like that. Yes. And if you've tripled the size, but you're only going to increase by a third, right? You can't charge that third for that kind of increase. So they are going to pay in. So basically, in simple terms, you're spreading the cost over everybody, and so everybody's going to be treated the same, but they are going to generate money to help pay the debt service.
So can we use that impact fee to pay off the COPs without any other approval by us or the state or anybody else?
I would have to check in more specifically, but I'm fairly certain that the way that COPs are structured are specifically to be able to use whatever revenue we've decided is appropriate.
In Florida, they use impact fees to pay off COPs for schools.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I always want to check, but I'm fairly certain that is absolutely something we can do.
That's good. And I think this is a great example that our impact fee for the police services or the police facilities wasn't adequate so that we had enough money as the growth happened to offset more than, whatever that number is going to be.
This is a perfect example of correcting an existing deficiency.
Yeah.
You guys identified another funding source, and that was a COP.
Yeah.
And that's how we're elevating levels of service, and we're going to have an impact fee as well.
Yep. Okay, that's the first one. You mentioned mortgages and what the impact to a mortgage may be if the impact fee was X amount.
Right.
I've never seen an analysis on that, so I'll definitely be interested in it because the home builders may be saying, oh my God, this is going to put us out of business. And it may turn out to be whatever, $10 on your mortgage.
$7.50 on $1,000. Right?
Exactly. So it would be good to see that and how that plays out. Comparisons with other growing municipalities, right? Not just maybe Lafayette or Louisville, which are not growing anywhere near the pace we are. But I think that'd be helpful
We
because
always,
that's really
always do that at the end. We do a comparison
Okay.
of your draft fees, your existing fees to the region.
Yep. So like
Yep.
Parker maybe,
Yep.
or Castle Rock, or because that's where the builders are going, because that's where they could build, just like they can come here and build. And if we're magnitudes over them, then at least I'd want an explanation.
Right.
So when the developers do come to us, and they will, I've got firm ground to stand on to
Right.
articulate.
Now,
what
I will give you a warning in advance
Okay.
that you have to caveat all of this because it's never an apples to apples comparison. Because, for instance, you look at one park fee in one jurisdiction, and you say, well, why is theirs higher? Well, theirs also includes trails and it includes this. Or why is this one lower? Well, they haven't updated their fee in 15 years, right? And they only adopted 25% of the maximum supportable 15 years ago, right? There's all of these caveats, but we do that on every impact fee study.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good. And then you were just talking about things driving away developers. I think Erie by far has location. I mean, 10 miles from Boulder, 10 miles from Longmont, 10 miles to Interlochen, a business park, 25 miles to the airport. All of these things are positives. Great schools, trails. We have the rec center, and hopefully a bigger rec center if Luke is successful here in November, and the library, right? All of these things build community.
Exactly.
So I'm not too concerned about getting these fees where they need to be in order to ensure we have the revenue we need to expand the facilities we need. And that includes the public works facility that we don't have funding for today, but it's certainly on our horizon to fund. All right, that was just a commentary. Any other comments, thoughts, questions? All right, with that, thank you. And
Thank you, and we look
the
forward
output.
to our next visit.
All right,
Yeah.
sounds good. Thank you. All right, with that, we'll go to council member reports and announcements. And how about we start with Councilmember Hoback, and we'll just go down the dais tonight.
Nothing to report.
All right, thank you.
I just want to thank staff and the police department for neighborhood night out. I wasn't able to attend, but it seemed like it was well attended, and I loved looking at the all the things that the Erie Police Department had demonstrations for. So thank you.
Thank you for the presentations this evening. I did go to STAC last week, which is the State Transportation Advisory Committee, and where we got an update on Region 4, which is our region, and I was able to get an update on the 287 improvements, which is a safety grant that we were successful in acquiring a couple of years ago, and so they're at 60% design. Erie staff is very active in with feedback, and so we're excited to have some updates that include some of our feedback. One of the interesting things that they're considering are a number of ILACs, which is left turns are called a Michigan left, so it's in between sort of, I guess, stoplights. You would not turn left at the stoplight. You go up to kind of the center of the intersection and then make a U-turn to turn left. It's very interesting. So they're kind of leaning pretty heavily on those right now, and we maybe would like to see some other ideas, but that's moving forward. They have an ag open house and a Boulder County open space meeting, and then they're coordinating with the school that's on 287 as well. So more to come there. And then what else? I went to the NLC housing webinar today, which was so interesting. We were learning more about the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, which was a bipartisan bill that was passed at the legislature. And I mean, by Congress. And so there's so many moving parts to that. We'll be learning more about that. But in the meantime, it's important for cities to be influencing and getting ready, influencing, meaning being prepared to testify at the federal level. As they've changed a lot of policy, but all of these grants need funding, and so that'll be a next step. But it was pretty exciting to learn more about that, and so interesting to be on a call with cities all over the country who are also tackling this same issue. A good thing that came out of that bill is that it really prioritizes local control, and we're able to influence what needs we need to meet in our community. So that was interesting to learn about today. And then also, let's see, we also learned about the I-25 region or segment 4, which is our part of I-25 at STAC. It has been included in the CDOT 10-year plan, and so we expect design and funding to be included and for us to actually see beneficial improvements on I-25 in our lifetimes. It's amazing. It's back to school, so just want to remind everyone to watch out for kiddos as they're going to school, riding their bikes in the pedestrian crossings. And then for staff, I just had a question about the referendum update, kind of where we're at on that and what next steps are for council.
I was going to put this in your report this week, but the petitioners submitted an additional set of petitions on last Friday, so that resets the 40-day protest date. So that protest date now will end on September 16th. So assuming no protest between now and September 16th, at that point the town clerk can send out a final letter of sufficiency. That does mean we can't make the November ballot. So once that final letter of sufficiency is drafted and sent out to the petitioners, town council has 30 days to take up the conversation. So sometime between September 17th and October 17th, we'll schedule on one of your meetings a conversation on what to do next. And at that point, your choices are to either repeal the existing ordinance or to set a special election date. The election dates that will be available at that point range from December 8th through the first part of February. So staff will have a suggestion on what date to choose and why. But that will come to you sometime beginning, like I said, between September 17th and October 17th. That is what the timing sets right now.
All right, thank you.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yep, thanks. And sorry, just to add on to what you're saying there, the December 8th is the first day because there's a state statute that says there's
we have to wait at least 32 days from the
existing election. Yep. So, all right, thanks. Yeah, just one thing tonight. This Friday, I'll be attending with State Representative Woog, the Maximus Monroe Foundation. There's a dinner at the Masters Clubhouse. Maximus was a young man tragically killed in a car accident last year. He was beloved by many students around here. He is a young man that was very service oriented, did a lot of volunteer work, both in his church and at Erie High School. And he loved, working on cars, and he had bought an old BMW that he was working on restoring. And as a tribute to him, after he passed, his friends went out and raised money to get that car in working condition. But I just want to read the dinner is for a foundation that his father John set up in his honor. And I just want to read the description of this. This is their mission statement, inspired by the life and legacy of Maximus Monroe. Our mission is to create opportunities for young people who embody heart, hustle, and honor through scholarships, mentorships, career exposure, and industry connections. Maximus had a unique gift for seeing those who felt unseen and lifting up others with kindness, compassion, and genuine friendship. By investing in students who share those qualities, we honor his legacy while helping them build meaningful futures. Inspired by Maximus's passion for building, fixing, creating, entrepreneurship, we place a special emphasis on skilled trades and technician careers while supporting any career-focused education, training, certification, apprenticeships, or degree pathway that leads to employment and purpose. So there is some scholarships available in his name, and I encourage everybody to go out to it's MaximusMonroe.Foundation.org, and MaximusMunro Foundation.org. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Councilor O'Connor?
Thank you. I also wanted to thank the Erie PD for the National Night Out. I did have a chance to attend and see all of the different services that are offered. The K-9 demonstration was pretty awesome. So thank you to Chief and all of the officers for being out there and sharing that with the community. Also wanted to mention that this was posted on the on Facebook by the town of Erie, that free mulch is available at the Erie Recycling Center. And I'll just read it off from here. Our forestry team prunes about 1,000 trees a year in town parks and public spaces, and all that pruning produces clean, disease-free, free mulch. It is free to residents for home landscaping. Type and color will vary, whatever the crew is working on, so it may be oak chips one week and pine the next. Take what you need. Keep in mind that the pile is there for everybody. Crews restock it as it gets hauled, or crews restock as it gets hauled away. Pickups run from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. 7 days a week, weather and holiday permitting. A scoop, shovel, and trash can are on site, but bring your own tools in case they are in use. Let's see, one note, the pile sits along the cardboard drop-off loop. Load up and clear out so recycling lines do not back up. So free mulch for anyone who would like it, or residents who would like it. So.
Right. Nothing to. Okay, sounds good. I just have a couple quick things. Boulder County, I think it was last week, approved the renaming of Isabel, that small section that Erie Parkway turns into Isabel before it gets to 287. Council was about a year and a half ago that we directed staff to see if this was doable. And so for me, it's been a 20-year journey because I was sitting in this seat 20 years ago when we renamed Leon A. Worrell Parkway to Erie Parkway. And the reason for that was to get Erie's name out onto I-25 and onto 287. We got it done onto I-25, but never got that last piece because it was in the county. So I'm thankful for the county commissioners. I don't know if we'll need a budget request item to actually get the names changed, but I'm assuming we'll talk about that probably on the 18th as we talk about the budget. All right, and National Night Out, thanks. The K-9 demonstration was awesome. My wife and I had a great time out there. And then last, since we will not make the November ballot for the referendum, what do you estimate the cost will be to the town?
I have to say this is entirely anecdotal, based on information from a previous position I was in. Probably between 70,000 and 100,000. The costs include getting the ballots printed, renting voting machines, hiring election judges, because we'll have to run everything in-house. So
Yeah,
but that is fully a guess at this point. We've not put anything out to bid. We haven't got any exact numbers yet.
Got it. And this is because Erie doesn't run elections anymore on a regular basis. We use the counties to do that.
Correct. And for example, if had this been April or March of next year, whatever, we might have been able to ask the counties to do it for us. But 32 days after the previous election, they don't have the ability to do that for us.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. All right, I'll look to the Mayor Pro Tem to take us. Oh, no, I won't. I'll come over to our acting town manager for any updates tonight.
The only thing, since none of you mentioned it, is that the town's recruitment for a new town manager is now live and on the. You can link through to the recruiter through our website if anyone is interested in applying. The first review, the deadline for the first review is August 31st. So.
Yep. Okay. And now I'll look to our town attorney, who is rarely wants to share information with us, to see if she would like to tonight.
We're going to keep that streak going. Nothing for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. With that, I'll look to our Mayor Pro Tem to take us into executive session.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I move to go into executive session to determine positions relative to matters that are subject to negotiations, instruct negotiators, and receive legal advice pursuant to CRS 246402-4A, B, and E, related to the acquisition of real property for the construction of Coal Creek Channel Restoration Project.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. We will not come back out here after the executive session. We'll adjourn the meeting at the conclusion of the executive session. All right, thank you.